And of course, I'll wait till that looks great. And I'll wait till I hear you talking before I turn myself on mute, so I can let you know we can hear you.
Hello, we are Globe students from Dubovac Elementary School in Karlovac, Croatia. I'm Mia.
I'm Bruno.
And I'm Carla.
Welcome. We hear you great. I'm going to go ahead and mute. Thank you.
Our project is called Save Parks and Plant Trees. At the time when we are raising students for sustainable development and environmental protection, it was important to conduct the research on the importance of planting trees and preserving green spaces in cities. This project was designed and presented by the students at the Globe State Project competition in Zagreb 2019 and was awarded. The aim of research was show the importance of preserving parks in Karlovac and to raise public awareness of the need for planting trees after construction works. This picture shows one of our park in Karlovac, and this picture shows one urban areas. These were our methods of work. The study was conducted according to the Globe protocol. About 20 students were measuring and then comparing measurement results. We measured the current air temperature in the hot and warm days with cloudiness less than 50% and 12:13 p.m. We measured the surface temperature of the sunlit grassy surface, the sunlit asphalt surface, the shaded grassy surface under the two different trees with an infrared thermometer. We measure and determined the three species, spruce and birch. These were our hypotheses. The current air temperature on warm and hot days with cloudiness less than 50% is always lower than the surface temperature of a sunlit grass surface. The surface temperature of the sunlit asphalted surface on warm and hot days with cloudiness less than 50% is always at least 5 degrees Celsius higher than the surface temperature of the sunlit grass surface. The surface temperature of a sunlit asphalted surface on warm and hot days with cloudiness less than 50% is always at least 10 degrees Celsius higher than the surface temperature of the grassy shaded place under the dishes and evergreen tree. We checked and compared the accuracy of our current air temperature measurements on the Globe station with measurements of the Croatian Hydrometeorological Service from April 22nd to September 21st, 2018 in Karlovac. This picture shows the distance between our school and the Croatian Hydrometeorological Station. This is a comparison of our measurements and Croatian Hydrometeorological Service data.
These graphs show our daily measurements that we did. We can see that the sunlit asphalt always has the highest temperature and that the shaded places below the trees are always the coolest. These graphs also show the same thing. The summary of the results is shown graphically, ranging from April to September, showing hot and warm days when cloudiness was less than 50%. The research has shown that the current air temperature is always lower than the surface temperature of the sunlit grassy surface. The surface temperature of the sunlit asphalt surface is always 10 degrees higher than the surface temperature of the grassy shaded place below the deciduous or evergreen tree in all hot and warm days with cloudiness less than 50%. We can see on this graph the shadows of the evergreen and the deciduous tree are there are very little differences between them, so they cannot be seen very well. We analyzed the data, and this is what we noticed. Differences in the surface temperature of sunlit asphalted surfaces and sunlit grassy surfaces are usually less than 5 degrees Celsius in April and May when the solar time is shorter and there is less solar energy. For summer days, the differences between the surface temperature of sunlit asphalted surface and sunlit grass surface is less than 5 degrees Celsius. We assume this is caused by dried and thin vegetation during summertime. Surface temperature can also be affected by other factors, soil moisture, which we will investigate in further research. These are the sources that we used in our research.
These were our activities after the State Globe Competition 2019. We planted trees. The project was published on globe.gov website. The local community was introduced to the research project. We think globally and act locally, and we plant trees behind our school. These are our younger students planting trees. This is the invitation to the EU conference during the Croatian presidency of the EU, and these are our souvenirs we made. On the October 29th, 2020, we were on Europe and Eurasia virtual regional meeting, and we presented our project, Save Parks and Plant Trees. This is us. And during the research, we were given some advice by scientists from the Croatian Meteorological and Hydrological Service, and we were grateful for their cooperation. Thanks for your attention. We are glad to have participated in this workshop.
Wow, well, we're very happy and appreciate very much that you made time this evening to present to this larger global community after you've had the chance, as you present to other people in Croatia. I wanted to tell you a few things that I've seen in the chat, and then I have a few questions for you. We have about 10 minutes before we move on. So if anyone else has more questions, feel free to ask them. Something that people have said, you mentioned that you like to think globally and act locally. That is so important. And many of the people have said, and two of them from NASA, how important that is. So thank you for having that as this lens that you look through as you do your research. I noticed that Antonella had a question for you. And she says, since there's a lot of rivers around your city, did you look into the surface near the rivers as far as kind of, I guess, looking at that surface temperature and comparing and contrasting it?
Yes, but we plan on doing that at some point.
Very good. That's always nice to think of. How do you add to your research the next time you work on that? So very, very good. Actually, what my question was going to be, the science that I do and the scientists whom I work with, as they make discoveries and they have their hypotheses and they see as a result of their investigation whether their hypothesis was how they thought it would be or not, they always have new questions that they think about that say, oh, I should have looked into that, or I need to try that. What are some new questions that you'd like to add to your research as you move forward for the next school year?
Well, we said in our presentation that humidity could possibly affect the temperatures, and we are looking into investigating that further.
Excellent. I know we do have a humidity protocol. That sounds like that would be a very important one to add. I also thought it was very neat that you have these different protocols, the surface temperature that you're using, and you're looking at the different locations. I'm wondering, do you collect any data using a rain gauge?
Yes, we collect data using a rain gauge in our atmospheric measurements.
Excellent, very good, because that could also be an interesting thing to potentially add to that. From what you've learned, in addition to planting some more trees, is there anything else that they might do in parks in order to help to reduce air pollution and in order to also have, fewer places where you have that direct sun coming down, making it so hot?
We could possibly decrease the number of cars that pass through the park, the areas in our city. That would greatly reduce air pollution and make things more accessible by bike and things like that.
Wow, excellent. Anything else anyone on your team would like to add?